Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here, Hump Day edition of Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And as always, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can join the show conversation on a multitude of platforms as Eagles training camp is going on. We have a new speculative report, rumor, whatever you want to call it, about Ben Simmons. So we got a lot to get to, and as always, you can chime in on the conversation. Text board is 609-403-0973. You also can message us through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can chime in to the show as you watch us on the social media platforms as well. So we got a bunch of stuff to get to. I'm going to get to the Sixers-Ben Simmons stuff first because we got a lot of NFL and Eagles stuff to talk with Dave Weinberg for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN coming up at 6:20 p.m. tonight. So we are going to get to that. But our guy, Brandon Scoopy Robinson, put out on Twitter less than an hour ago before we came on the show today, and I'll pop it up here for those of you watching on the stream, that it looks like the Ben Simmons trade situation has taken a turn. Here it is for all of you watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But I'll read it for you guys listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. The report is the Warriors and 76ers have re-engaged on a Ben Simmons deal. Philly is extremely motivated to get this deal done. So, obviously, the idea of the Sixers wanting to get the deal done, to me, is the real positive. Now, the problem with this is that I don't know how a deal is going to work for two reasons. One, because what exactly are the Warriors going to offer in a one-for-one deal that is any different or any better than the proposed rumored deals during the draft last week? The Sixers asked for a huge return from the Warriors for Ben Simmons, was the report, and the Warriors said no. Now, the Warriors did have the 7th and 14th overall picks. In theory, the Sixers could acquire the rights to those players in a trade, but we don't even know if the Sixers like those players. And then the reports were that the Sixers would acquire James Wiseman and Andrew Wiggins, and the reasoning for acquiring those players would be to use them in a subsequent trade after that. So what really the question is, are the Sixers planning a three-way deal? That's the question I want to know, because to me, there's nobody the Warriors would be willing to trade that the Sixers would legitimately want. So when I look at a situation like, for example, who would the Sixer, I know the Sixer fans want one thing, but that might not be what actually happens. But that being aside, Kyle Lowry's off the market. He's in Miami. Toronto has no real leverage to get involved in the deal with the Sixers. We know the Cavs have looked to trade people before. Do they get involved in a trade, a 3-4-way trade with the Sixers? You look at a team like Boston, they've been a little quiet there in free agency. Do they get involved in that trade with the Sixers? We know that the Rockets, they've been rumored to a lot of situations and potential trades. Could they get involved? And we know that according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Warriors have already traded Eric Pascal to the Utah Jazz for a second-round pick. So keep an eye on this situation. I'm not promising you Ben Simmons is going to be traded. But what I am saying is there's hope that he does get traded. And really, all we really need right now is hope. Because I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it a million times. I have zero interest in Ben Simmons being here next year. I believe that Ben Simmons is someone who loves what the game does for his bank account more than he loves winning at the game of basketball. That's my perspective, and I will stick to that. There's nothing about Ben Simmons and a lot of athletes. It's not just Ben Simmons. There's a lot of athletes who they don't have a passion for the game. And if you're going to win championships in the league, one of your best players has to be all about winning. Part of the reason why LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh got together was because they all were on the same page when it came to winning and sacrificing to win games. The most successful people in this league are all about winning championships. They're not about all the other minutia. So Ben Simmons, he can go to a team like the Warriors and hook up with a Steph Curry and a Klay Thompson and a Draymond Green and fit in perfectly because he's the fourth guy on that team. He's so far down the ladder in terms of importance. Now, the problem is that, like I said, if this is a 1-for-1 deal, it's not happening. But if it's more than that, I could see it happening. Josh Hennig here. We'll get to your messages in just a moment. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you can message us through the 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. The other news I want to hit on real quick before we move too far along is this. Travis Fulgham spoke to the media today, and he confirmed the one thing that has been consistently rumored and discussed and speculated for a very long time. And that is the Eagles benched Travis Fulgham last year because Doug Peterson was more comfortable with Alshon Jeffrey. And this is an important thing to keep in mind. There's a reason why the Doug Peterson era ended in Philadelphia. Because Doug Peterson was more interested in being a play caller than a head coach. It's been reported by multiple people who cover this team and the NFL that Doug Peterson was overly loyal to the veterans. He trusted them and he wanted them on the field because he wanted to call plays. Doug Peterson said at multiple press conferences, I love play calling. I want to be a play caller. He was never, ever, ever shy about that. So for Doug Peterson, he trusted Alshon Jeffrey, Jason Peters, all those guys more than the younger players. So he never gave the younger players a legitimate chance to develop. And because he didn't want to coach up his players, because he didn't want to develop players, he wanted veterans on the field to fit into what he wanted to do. So, as a result, Travis Fulgham, who was having an incredible stretch of games, gets demoted because Doug Peterson would rather have a veteran wide receiver on the field than the young receiver who is becoming one of the hottest names in the NFL. So for all the people who still wonder, I don't know why Doug Peterson isn't here. It doesn't make sense why Doug Peterson is not here. This is why. Because Doug Peterson was more comfortable playing a stiff like Alshon Jeffrey than giving his young, up-and-coming receiver more reps. Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that we can't get past that. Now, the other news coming out of camp is Davion Taylor is injured. He has a calf situation that will make him out week to week. So Davion Taylor looks like he's going to probably miss the preseason game next Thursday. All right, so tomorrow night, we have the Hall of Fame game here on 97.3 ESPN. But next Thursday is the Eagles' first preseason game. And it looks like Davion Taylor will at least miss that, which is a shame because according to a lot of people covering the team, he had been showing out in camp. And it would have been exciting and fun to see him out there. You drafted this young man for a reason. You wanted him to come in here and make an impact. You saw what he could do at Colorado. You had hopes for him to be an impact player for this team, and now he's not available. It's just disappointing. per se bad, but it's disappointing. Okay. Again, I don't think that this means Davion Taylor's not going to make the team, but I think it just means that their projected role for him might be diminished. And he was getting a lot of reps because Alex Singleton is on the COVID list. So it's just disappointing. We learned also that Ryan Kerrigan's injury is not serious. It's more of a overly precautionary situation the Eagles are having with a veteran. And another practice where Mailata outperformed Andre Dillard. So if anybody's wondering what's going on with left tackle, basically everyone and their cousin can see that Mailata is more prepared to be a starting left tackle for the Eagles than Andre Dillard. So there's the updates for you on Eagles training camp. We'll get more and deeper into that coming up with Dave Weinberg. Weinberg Wednesdays every Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN 620 tonight. Get to some of your guys' messages. Obviously, the Ben Simmons news, speculation report, whatever you want to call it, is out there. Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Also, you can shoot a message to the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Julian chimes in on the YouTube channel. His first message that came in said, Sixers probably getting assets they can get from Golden State to go to Portland or Washington. So here's Julian's problem. That takes a two-way street. Portland and Washington have to be willing to trade Lillard and Beal. Just because you or the Sixers want Lillard or Beal doesn't mean they're being traded. There are multiple reports out there that say, and Lillard said himself, he wants to be in Portland. And there's multiple reports out there saying that Beal likes what the Washington Wizards are doing. Getting Spencer Dinwiddie, reformatting the roster with the Westbrook deal. According to some reports, apparently Beal and Kuzma are like buddies or something. I don't know if maybe they play video games together online. I don't know. But so this idea that the Sixers are going to get Lillard and Beal, until I see some substantial evidence and reporting that that's even a possibility, I have to dismiss it out of hand. Listen, we all want things in life. We all want to have things. Doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. We all want $1 million, right? But we're not getting it just because we want it. Yes, Beal and Lillard would be upgrades for the Sixers for the Sixers from Washington and Portland. But guess what? If Portland and Washington don't want to get those players, or if those players don't want to be traded to Philadelphia, there's a report out there that Lillard has told people if he was to get traded, he want to be traded to the Knicks. I don't know if that's true or not because Lillard didn't say it, and Lillard's favorite reporter, Chris Haynes, didn't say it. So I don't know if it's true. So until I see substantial evidence about Lillard or Beal to Philadelphia, that's not from some rando on social media, I can't believe it, Julian. I'm sorry. Okay, text in here, 609-403-0973. Texter says, what about Klay Thompson? I would be shocked if the Warriors were willing to trade Klay. Klay and Steph, they built that culture in Washington. Out there with the Warriors. There is no Warriors without Klay Thompson, to me, because Klay Thompson is an elite three-point shooter and an elite perimeter defender. And if you replaced Simmons with Thompson out there, you got to change the offense, because what you basically have in Ben Simmons is another variant of Draymond Green. Ben Simmons and Draymond Green are very similar players. They're both guys who are ball handlers, who can guard all five positions on the floor, who are not great shooters. Now, Draymond's a better shooter than Ben Simmons, but that's not saying much. To say you're better than someone who's horrible at something is not saying much. So I would utterly be shocked, Texter, if the Warriors were to trade Klay Thompson. All right, we'll get to more of your guys' thoughts and comments coming up in just a bit here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN. Keep them coming. YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, also the text board 609-403-0973 and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks First Bank of Seattle City. Send your messages through there. You get all your alerts on the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers, and high school sports with the app. Coming up next, you can check out his articles over at 973ESPN.com. He is Dave Weinberg, and he joins us right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Next, I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
Tomorrow night, football is back. The 2021 NFL preseason opens with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys in the Hall of Fame game. Hey, folks, how are you? This is Jason Horowitz from Westwood One Sports. Be sure to join Scott Graham and James Lofton as the Cowboys and Steelers kick off the festivities in Canton, Ohio. If it's the NFL, it's right here.
Coverage begins at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN.
Are you a Philly sports fanatic? Do you love to travel and cheer on our hometown squad across the country? You need to check out Philly Sports Trips. Join your fellow Philly sports fans and book your trip with Philly Sports Trips to cheer on the Birds this fall as they travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Travel packages can include chartered airfare, hotel, rides to and from the airport and stadium, game tickets, tailgate parties, entertainment, and more. Check out all the great Vegas travel packages Philly Sports Trips offers. Visit phillysportstrips.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And as always, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and where we can join the conversation as well. We'll get back to the Ben Simmons Sixers stuff in just a little bit, but joining us right now for another Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. It is Dave Weinberg. Check out his extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com, at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. He joins us right now on the live stream here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I know for you, probably the weather is a bit of a letdown. It's still August, and it feels a little bit more like late September, early October. How you doing with that?
Yeah, I prefer the heat, but I was mainly concerned about the rain. I didn't get a chance to get outside and do much today, which kind of bummed me out a little bit. But there's always tomorrow.
Yes, there is always tomorrow. At least according to the weather experts, who we know they're right about as much as baseball hitters hit baseballs. Listen, it's supposed to be nice this weekend, so take that with a grain of salt.
Very
right?
good. I'm looking forward to it.
So we got a lot to touch on, Dave. Obviously, football is back. I finally broke out the Eagles shirt for the first time.
Very nice.
Last year. So to me, I'm all footballed up, but I got to start with the news that came out on Monday. Carson Wentz out 5 to 12 weeks. And to me, I represent 97.3 ESPN.com. To me, Dave, I look at it like this. The Eagles already won the deal. They got rid of the drama. They got rid of this mess that is Carson Wentz. Because you know what? Whether you get the first, second round pick, to me, it's almost negligible at this point, because if he would have been injured in Eagles camp, you and I both know that everyone in this area would have been losing their minds about him getting injured again.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's a heck of a lot difference between that first and second round pick. It'd be nice to get the first, but if they're going to package that to move up in the draft come April or whatever, I think they'll be able to do it without much of a problem. And yeah, you're right. If this had happened at the NovaCare complex, I mean, Philly would be going bonkers. So the fact that they kept him, why didn't they get rid of him? And now he's hurt yet again. That would have been a real circus. It probably is out in Indy too. I don't know how many people cover the team, but it probably is a little bit out there too.
Well, the last time I did a head count, I think they have 6 people who are committed to the beat in Indianapolis.
Well, that's probably better for him then, because
right.
He had a tough time handling what was here.
Now, the funny thing, though, is not funny, but ironic, is that Quentin Nelson apparently has the same injury.
Yeah.
So how weird is that? You have 2 players they randomly broke a bone in their foot and they didn't know that it was breaking. It's just, I'm talking about a weird situation out there in Indianapolis. You almost feel bad for Frank Reich.
Yeah, I mean, it must be like something with the turf, I guess, because those Frank injuries, they're no joke. And when you suffer one, you can be out for a long time. And but I find that week 5 to 12 window a little strange. I mean, that's a pretty broad range, 7 weeks. But I guess they're hoping that they'll be back as soon as possible. Quentin Nelson's a huge loss too. I mean, everybody wants to focus on Carson Wentz, but that guy's as good a guard as there is in the league. So to lose him is a big blow for them.
Well, here's the good news for Eagle fans. That is, if Wentz comes back either week 4 or week 5 for the Colts, which is about 8-9 weeks out, you can still get the first round pick. So it's not like it's completely out of the question. But like I said, Dave, to me, the bigger thing was just get him out of here, move on.
Yep.
It's just a shame that last year was such a dumpster fire that we're still like looking back on it, thinking how on earth did last year happen with so many different things.
Yeah, it's best to just turn the page. And I find it interesting that Indy's actually, I hear Nick Foles' name being brought up there, and they're real hesitant to do that because they're afraid of the relationship, that Wentz might get his feelings hurt again about having Foles in there. And if Nick comes in there and plays well for Frank Reich, he's going to be a cult hero again, just like he was in Philly. So, I find it really interesting that they're and I've heard talk today that Phillip Rivers might be coming back. That might be the most logical move. I mean, the fact that he played for him last year.
Well, the problem is you got to pry Philip away from coaching high school football down in his hometown.
Yeah.
He's a little busy, he says. Philip's like, well, I'd maybe consider. I keep in shape. And it's like Phil, you keeping in shape is not exactly telling me you're ready to go out there and start week 1. And listen, someone brought this up comment to me earlier this week, and Dave, you tell me what you think. Someone told me earlier this week, they were like, well, if Frank Reich is such a great coach, can he coach up Jake Eason and Brett Hundley and Sam Ehlinger at least to hold them off for a couple of weeks in the season?
That's going to be an interesting challenge for Frank. I mean, he does have that reputation as kind of I don't want to say quarterback guru, but the kind of guy who can develop quarterbacks, and that's going to be a real challenge for him now with Carson out. I mean, I think they would have been much better off bringing in like an established veteran. I mean, Brett Hundley's okay, but he really doesn't have a whole lot of experience. I think it was like 20 games or something like that. If to bring him in and have him teach him in the entire new system, I think you would have been better off having somebody that actually has some background with Frank that kind of knows what he expects and how he teaches and that kind of stuff. But I guess they know better than me.
Or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Listen,
we'll find out.
hey, man, just because someone has a job doing something doesn't mean they're an expert. It just means they happen to be the person doing that job. So
there you go. Yep, that's true.
Dave Weinberg joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN for a Weinberg Wednesday. Dave, let's jump over to Eagles camp. Speaking of last year, Travis Fulgham told the media today that basically confirmed what everybody thought, which is he was basically benched last year for Alshon Jeffrey to get playing time, which is really sad because to me, it just is another sign that how just disastrous last year was, that you have a young man playing great and you tell him, hey, you're going to lose reps because Alshon came back. Like, talk about just a punch to the gut for a young player.
Yeah, I mean, they were floating that idea that he was somehow his practice habits weren't the best, so that's why they sat him down. And that would almost be more plausible than sitting for Alshon. I mean, you were at the point of the season where, Alshon wasn't going to give you anything anyway, so why not just develop the young kid? They were at that, like I said, they were at that point where the more young players you can develop, and Travis had an outstanding month of the season, and then all of a sudden he disappears. That made no sense to me at all.
Dave, I asked this question earlier this week, and I asked it again today, and I want to ask you, because we know Doug Peterson, he brought this team a Super Bowl. He is all-timer for this organization.
Yep.
But there's a part of me that wonders. I heard Doug say multiple times at press conferences how much he loves play calling, how much passion he was about it.
Yep.
Is there a possibility that Doug was so in love with play calling that he at times forgot to coach?
No, I don't think so. I mean, well, when you get to the NFL level, coaching is pretty much done by the coordinators and by the position coaches. The head coach most of the time is pretty much like the overseer of everything. He's the one that's developing the game plan, though, and he's the one most of the time calling the plays, especially if he's a offensive-minded guy. I don't think that it affected Doug, to be honest with you. I think he had a pretty good idea what he had on his team and how to coach them, if that's what you can call it. I mean, it's more of a coach is more of almost like a general manager when you get to that point, because, like I said, the position coaches, they're the ones that are in the rooms every day and on the field every day with all their respective players. They're the ones that are kind of teaching the system to the guys, and Doug kind of like I said, kind of oversees it all. So I don't think that had a negative effect on him. I really don't.
Let me ask you about the current coach. Nick Sirianni has done and said a lot of things since he's come to Philadelphia. And one of the things that stood out to me was what he said about Jalen Hurts. He was very complimentary of Hurts as a red zone quarterback.
Right.
And to me, that's a sign of a quarterback's IQ, because it shows that the quarterback is able to process information in a very short window. What were your takeaways for what Sirianni complimented about Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it is a sign of intelligence, a sign of being able to make decisions very quickly without, necessarily holding on to the ball too long or going through a whole lot of progressions. If you find that, your guy, you're able to get the ball out. Plus, he can make, plays with his legs, as everybody knows. So, yeah, I mean, the red zone is such a vital part of a game plan. And the fact that Jalen has already started to, I don't want to say master it, but become more comfortable with it. that can only bode well for him going into the season, I think.
Now, with that being said, I do also think it's interesting that, Hurts, he's going to be going into the preseason, but it looks like without Devonta Smith, he's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. So at least miss a couple preseason games.
Yeah.
Sprained him MCL. So I kind of have to wonder, will that stunt the offense's development without your number one receiver out there?
Maybe, yeah. That's a pretty big blow for them. And when you're talking about week to week, that means he's going to be out for a little bit, I think. You can read between the lines. He's not coming back anytime soon. I think it was a sprained MCL. That's what I was hearing. So, yeah, and it's really a blow to Devontae. I mean, you were looking for your first round pick to come in and make an impact right away. And he had gotten off to a decent start in training camp. I mean, he was impressing everybody with his catching ability, his speed, and all that. And the fact that he's going to be sitting down, that's going to hamper him too. It's going to be interesting to see how they work around that and how they incorporate him back once he's able to play again. You're right.
Yeah, of course, Darius Slay was very complimentary to Devonta Smith, saying how intelligent he was, how quick of a learner he was. So it's just a shame all around. But the good news from camp, Dave, is that someone's taking a hold of that left tackle situation. Apparently, Jordan Mailata looks like a beast compared to Andre Dillard. So at least it's not like both guys coming in mediocre, right? It's one guy firmly going out there and doing work so far. Obviously, we got to see what the preseason games happen. Yeah,
I mean, Jordan seems to have taken the early lead in that competition. I'm not quite ready to give him that job just yet, but so far he's proven that last year wasn't a fluke. That the promise that he showed is real. And Andre, on the other hand, has some work to do. He still has to prove to the coaching staff that he is worthy of being that first round pick. So far, he hasn't done it, but there's a long way to go. And it's really, I remember talking to guys in training camp, especially offensive linemen, and like John Running going back a little bit ways, and they hated those one-on-one drills, absolutely despised them because it really wasn't a true measure of pass blocking ability, because so often you have help on the inside or the outside. Those guys are still always trying to divide different moves, and they get extra time too to get to the quarterback, so to speak. So I know that they're not big fans, and I'll be more interested to see what happens in the preseason when those guys are out there.
Also, what are your thoughts on, apparently the Eagles told Mailata, we would like you to lose 25 pounds. He was fully clear, apparently, of that 25 pounds when he showed up at camp, and apparently he's in the best shape of his life.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, he's a kid still. I mean, he's probably a little bit older now, but he is everybody's a little bit older. But yeah, he's an athlete, and he knows how to do it. I mean, he was probably putting on weight for the first 2 seasons because he wasn't playing any. So he's actually just probably working out and eating. But yeah, the fact that he's in great shape, that's a really encouraging sign. Same thing with Brandon Brooks. I got a kick out of him. How he lost all this weight, then he gained it all, and everybody's wondering if he's on steroids or what have you. But that guy knows his body more than anybody. I mean, he knows what to do to get ready for an NFL season and to recover from an injury, considering he's had his share over the past couple of years. So, I'm really encouraged by what I've seen from Brandon Brooks so far too.
Yeah, Brandon Brooks and Jordan Mailata may be the most physically in shape current NFL offensive lineman I think I've ever seen at this point. The way they both I'm used to offensive linemen, Dave, being they're hefty. They got the stomach. They're a little thick around the leg area. Whereas Brooks and Mailata look like, I don't know, they might be able to play defensive line and not just offensive line.
Oh, that used to be the way. Yeah, I mean, more and more, I think you're finding offensive linemen now are more, are a little bit leaner, a little more athletic. Like Lane Johnson was a quarterback when he first went to Oklahoma.
Right.
So, he has that athleticism about him. And you kind of need that now because you like you said, the defensive linemen you're going against are all agile, strong, fast. So you kind of have to be able to counter that. And just weighing 340 or what have you, just being this big, hulk of muscle inside is not going to cut it again when you're going against guys like that. So you have to be able to counter it.
Absolutely. Dave Weinberg, Weinberg Wednesday, joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. Check out his extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com, where, Dave, you did write about boxing finally returned to Atlantic City. Give the folks a little taste of what you wrote about on the extra points column, because it seems like it went very well.
Yeah, I was so excited. Yeah, it was a sellout crowd at Showboat. Everybody was really into it, and you can tell that people missed being there and being at a live event. I mean, they weren't world championship fights by any stretch of the imagination, but they were all competitive. They were all exciting, and you had like fans from every fighter had his own rooting section. They were really loud, very boisterous. It just felt so good to be in that kind of atmosphere again. It had been 16 months since we'd had a boxing event in Atlantic City, and I'm glad it's finally back, and hopefully it's here to stay. I mean, who knows what's going to come up with the various protocols and stuff, but I'm hoping that they'll be able to sustain it for at least, the rest of the year.
Now, in terms of just the property itself, you said that they sold out at Showboat. Do you think that was a sign to Showboat they need to, get some more events in there, kind of thing?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, Bart Blatstein's a pretty big sports fan, the guy that owns Showboat, and so I wouldn't put it past him to do that. They do have a 10-fight deal with Manny Rivera, the promoter from Hard Hitting Promotions. But yeah, they've talked about getting MMA in there, more MMA stuff, amateur boxing. So yeah, I mean, they have plenty of room to improve there. I mean, I think there's plans to have build some sort of 10,000 seat arena next door. Which will lend itself to bring in even bigger fights, hopefully, bring bigger events aside from the exotic circus that's there now, I guess. But yeah, it's I think the fact that it's not a casino kind of turns some people off, but they've been doing a great job of adding various amenities to the place, and I think it's a lot more attractive than it had been. So yeah, I'm looking forward to them continuing to build on it.
Any word on when the next date is yet, or are we still waiting on that?
Yeah, August 28th. Yep.
August 28th, and that's at Showboat too, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes. All the 10 fights with the deal over the Showboat. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. So again, that's is that the week before or the week of Labor Day weekend? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
2 weeks before, I think.
2 weeks before. Okay.
Yeah, I think Labor Day weekend is like 2 weeks after that.
So it's technically still the summer season then.
Yeah. They got high school football coming up pretty soon around that time too, I think, right?
Well, that's true. They call it, what do they call it now? Week 0 or week X or whatever, some wacky name, because technically week 1 is not supposed to be week 1, and so
right. Too confusing for me.
I just say there's games on. That's what I say. Because Dave, listen, this is the first week that we will have football of NFL or college football variety for every single week until the middle of February.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. That's a long time.
Hall of
That's
Fame
a lot of football.
Hall of Fame games tomorrow night. So
Yep.
If people want to satiate their appetite, I suggest that that's where you do it. Just don't bet on it. So
Right. Watch the first quarter and find something else to do. Watch the Olympics.
Dave, I also know, before I let you go, I know you've been keeping an eye on the lifeguard racing scene. Just wanted to get your reaction. I know that the Dutch Hoffmans were last Friday, the Markings are this Friday. Of course, folks can hear the races here on 97.3 ESPN. Just want to get your thoughts on the lifeguard racing scene as we head down the stretch here.
It's been fantastic. I've been to maybe 3 or 4 events so far, and they've all been terrific. Wildwood Crest seemed to be the dominant patrol for a while, but Longport really showed themselves to be the team to beat once again at the Dutch Hoffmans. That was a terrific swim. Everybody was looking to that swimming race between Joey Tepper of Longport and Devin Grisbaum of Avalon, and that lived up to the billing. And Joey hasn't lost a race in 3 years, and added another victory to his total. So it's going to be interesting to see those two go at it in Margate and in Longport for the South Jerseys.
He's Dave Weinberg. Give him a follow on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Check out his extra point columns over at 973ESP.com. And of course, his podcast, which would be Tequila and Touchdowns with Dave Weinberg. And he joins us every Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, always enjoyed the conversation, and we'll get you next week.
Thanks a lot, Josh. I appreciate it as always. Talk to you next week.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to you guys' thoughts and comments. I got messages coming in on the YouTube channel. Also, the text board. You can shoot a message to the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks, First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, text board as well. You want to just text in, you can do that as well. 609-403-0973. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. More next.
This is Billy Schwein. Join us Friday night for 97.3 ESPN's live coverage of the 75th Annual Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races live from the beach in Margate. Coverage starts at 6 p.m.
The Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races are being brought to you by McCann Realtor, serving Seattle City since 1939. Dino's Subs and Pizza on Bender Ave in Margate. Lee's Builders of Margate, over 30 years of building custom homes. Blitz's Markets with 2 locations in Ocean City at 21st and 34th Streets. 7th and 11th Streets Bike and Surrey Rentals at the Boardwalk in Ocean City.
Some people are easily moved.
Wasn't that just the saddest movie ever?
Whatever. Others, not so much.
Oh, look at the puppies!
Just dogs, but smaller, so what? But even those who aren't easily moved.
Look, your long-lost brother's been found!
Oh, hi, Mike. Can be moved by us. Yeah, we're that good.
Use Clark's Moving and Storage in Rio Grande for your next local or long-distance move. Visit Clark's Moving and Storage online at clarksmoving.net.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We'll get back to your guys' thoughts and comments in just a bit. Of course, text board is open as always, 609-403-0973. Also, just the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to Seattle City. And, of course, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can join the conversation there as well as you watch the show. Before we get to that, I want to remind you about my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. The summer games are underway, and the Celebrate FanDuel Sportsbook is hooking new users up with an epic summer games bonus. New users get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win. That's right. Just place your first bet on any summer games sport, risk-free. So whether it's the basketball games going to the medal rounds, whether it is track and field, whether it is baseball, whatever you want, you can get in on the action with FanDuel Sportsbook. And the reason why I love FanDuel Sportsbook is just because of promotions like this. And their app is simple to use with unique, fun bet types, such as my favorite same-game parlays and exclusive, always-on promotions so that you get more action out of every game day. So new users, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and sign up with my promo code Hennig to get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win. That's promo code Hennig to go for the gold today with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present in NJRPA. First online real money wager only for a risk-free bet. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And we will talk about the Olympics a little bit before we get out of the show, because I do want to address something before we get out of here. But before we do, I promise I'll get to you guys' thoughts and comments. Eagles training camp underway. Ben Simmons reports speculation out there. Again, the report out there is that the Sixers and the Warriors have re-engaged on talks. So there is hope they'll be able to maybe get something done. Although I'm not fully sure how that deal will work because of the fact that I don't know if you're the Sixers why you would want Andrew Wiggins, for example. So, but we will have to see what is going on that front. A couple of messages that came in before we got here. Jake chimes in and says, Harris, Simmons, and picks for Dame Lillard and CJ, or a three-way trade with the Warriors. First of all, you're proposing a trade that Portland would have no interest in. See, here's the problem. And listen, Jake or anybody else, you got to stop looking at it selfishly. If you're going to make a trade proposal, okay, don't be the guy who turns off the AI simulator on NBA 2K and try to make a trade, all right? Why would Portland want to make that trade? In what reality would the Warriors want to enable the Sixers to get Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum in a three-way trade? And why would Portland give up their top two players for two players that I think most Sixer fans think are inferior? Most Sixer fans believe that Lillard is better than Simmons and McCollum is better than Harris, or some sort of variance of that. Okay, McCollum's better than Simmons and Lillard is better than Harris, right? So what incentive would Portland have giving up their two best players for Harris and Simmons? Like that's the kind of stuff that I can't wrap my head around. Why on earth would you think that's even an idea? Unless you're the person who turned off the trade simulator in NBA 2K and just force through trades and control every team in the league because you want to have fun. Because if that's the case, that's fine. You want to make trades and don't have the AI fight you on the trades, that's fine. That what you do in video games is your life. But this is real world. In the real world, that trade would never happen unless there's something else attached to the deal that is not being specified. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, the report is that I'm just going to read it verbatim so I don't, confuse or conflate or anything going on with the report. All right. But here's basically what it breaks down to. Quote, this is from frequent contributor to the show, Brandon Scoopy Robinson, NBA insider for Bally Sports. Warriors and 76ers have re-engaged on a Ben Simmons deal, sources tell Bally Sports. Philly is extremely motivated to get this deal done. Now, to me, the key is not the Sixers and the Warriors. The key is they're motivated to get a deal done. This comes after late last night, Adrian Wojnarowski said on SportsCenter that the Sixers still have interest in moving on from Ben Simmons. Now, Woj said on SportsCenter last night he wasn't specifically reporting this, so that's why I didn't go out on Twitter. But he was saying that based on what he knows, the Sixers still want to make a trade. So this report today by Scoop B makes sense. I just don't see how it's going to happen, as I said, a one-on-one deal. I just don't see how a one-for-one deal can happen in this situation, because if I am a team like the 76ers, I want certain things in return for Ben Simmons. And if I can't get those things in return for Ben Simmons, then why do I make a deal? The deal's got to work out for everybody. It can't just work out for one side. So if you're the Sixers, you want something in return. If you're the other team, you want something in return. It's got to be something of equal value. But obviously, we'll be talking about this until the offseason is over or Ben Simmons is finally traded, which I hope he is. Because I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 100 times. Look, let's be realistic. The Sixers cannot win a championship with Ben Simmons playing the way he has in his career. The version of Ben Simmons that has played is great for the regular season, but not for the postseason. And until he evolves and grows and develops as a human being, he will never be more than just an all-star caliber player, which he's been selected by the coaches multiple times. Not by fan voting, by coaches. So, and the last time I checked, coaches know something about basketball. So, before I get out of here, before the Olympics, completely get out of our point of view, I didn't want to let go what happened this week at the Olympics. So, I know a lot of people have had a lot of opinions about Simone Biles and what she's going through. And I want to address it because I think there's something that's being completely overlooked. All right. The situation with Simone Biles was not that she quit on her team. It was not that she does not want to compete. It doesn't mean that she's having a specific mental breakdown. It's because she actually, for a medical reason, was told to not compete. In gymnastics, they call it the twisties, okay? And it basically is when you lose spatial awareness, all right? The doctors call it a disconnect between the brain and the body. You lose track of where you are in the air. And the reason why it's important to understand that is because she didn't quit on her team, but she's also aware that people who have had what they call the twisties, there was a gymnast years ago who lost track of herself in the air, broke her neck, and was paralyzed. So it would be a poor judgment by the doctors to let her go out there. And frankly, there's a lot of reasons why people can have twisties. A lot of times it's caused by stress and anxiety. And you know what? These Olympics are being played in adverse conditions. And considering Simone Biles' background, the fact that she was sexually abused and verbally abused by coaches and doctors of USA Gymnastics, considering the fact of everything she's been through in her life, it was important for her to get out there and compete. And yes, she only got the bronze on the beam because she changed her dismount because she was uncomfortable actually doing a full twist off the beam. I think that people need to appreciate the fact that she found a way to overcome her situation instead of criticizing her, because most people who are criticizing her, they can't even do what she does. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Have a good one. I'll catch you next time.
The Eagles are back, and the Sports Bash has them covered like nobody else in South Jersey.
E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Listen for training camp updates every weekday at 4 p.m. during Football at 4 with Jeff Mosier, Adam Kaplan, and Andrew DeCecco. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5:30. It's 97.3 ESPN.com Eagles insider Jeff Kerr and NFL insider Rob Motti from the Associated Press joins the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 5:30. It's the best Eagles and NFL training camp coverage around, and it's only on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Touchdown! The Eagles win! The Eagles win!
On 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's exclusive radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football.